The Voortrekker Monument, a symbol of a new beginning for the Afrikaans culture as well as their religious beliefs. It was built in honor of God, as the Voortrekkers believed that it was God who led them to the victory at the Battle of Blood River. A magnificent piece of architecture which took 12 years to complete and was opened on the 16th of December 1949. The monument symbolizes the Great Trek, which the Boers living in the Cape under British rule undertook, starting in 1835. It also recognizes the 20,000 Boer pioneers who spread their culture into the inland of Southern Africa. The monument was designed by Gerard Moedrich. On the outside, it is ringed by 64 granite ox wagons. Inside, it features a historical brazier and cenotaph, which is lit on the 16th of December each year by a ray of sunlight through an opening in the roof. The granite brazier, depicting the heroics of the trackers on 27 panels, is the largest in the world. The brazier and panels make up the Hall of Heroes. Each magnificent window is made up of 1,072 pieces of Belgian glass, and the monument itself is 62 meters high. The cenotaph is the symbolic center point of the monument. It resembles the symbolic resting place of Pretoria and all those pioneers who passed away during the Great Trek. In the basement of the monument, there is an amazing museum which contains loads of artifacts from the Great Trek. On the outside of this Pretoria monument are 5 massive statues of Boer leaders, such as Piet Retief, Andries Pretorius, Hendrik Potgieter, and another depicting a Boer woman and her 2 children. Each of these statues weigh roughly 6 tons. This shows that the Boers are all about family, that they understood that the trek wouldn't have been possible if it wasn't for one another, and that they respected the leaders that got them there. The monument is also surrounded by a beautiful Indonesian garden. The modern day relevance of this beautiful monument is that each year, on the 16th of December, all Boers must come to the monument for a lunch. This is to honor God's pact with the Boers, because not a single Boer died that day at the Battle of
The
Blood.
battle at Blood River between the Zulus and the Voortrekkers marks one of the bloodiest battles in South African history. According to the head of education at the Voortrekker Monument, it was an important marker in the pioneer phase.
During the pioneer phase, since 1835, for the next 20 years, when Voortrekker or pioneer farmers came into the interior of South Africa, there was a lot of conflict, especially in Natal, a 9-month period of conflict with King Dingaan specifically. And Blood River is considered by Afrikaans historians as the battle that actually diminished Dingaan's power.
The Voortrekkers were negotiating with Dingaan to settle on land south of the Tugela River. This after rebelling against the British rule in the Cape Colony and leaving the area on the historic Groot Trek in search of a new home.
The Voortrekkers felt that under British rule, they could not live independently. So they actually wrote to the British government in Cape Town telling them that they consider to leave the colony, which was considered to be a rebellious act against the colony. So they did that, and they also sent a commission trek just prior to the Great Trek start in 1835, which means people went up into Natal, did reconnaissance looking at the open area, especially south of the Tugela River, and they decided this is where they wanted to settle, away from British rule.
The basic pact between King Dingaan and Voortrekker Commando Piet Retief was for the Afrikaners to bring back cattle and horses stolen by Chief Sekonyela in exchange for a piece of land.
Many Westerners do not understand and still don't understand. A chief or a king does not give you the land, he simply grants you the right to stay. So 2 days after the treaty was signed by the two delegations of the Voortrekkers and the Zulus in the Gans, in his headquarters Umgungundlovu. 2 days later, those men were killed, and still today we have like 3 or 4 different interpretations trying to make sense of what happened and why did it happen.
2 days later, all those men were killed by Dingaan and his tribe, and still today we have 3 or 4 different interpretations of what really happened. Some say Piet Retief withheld cattle and some of the best horses for himself. Others say Dingaan feared the white man's witchcraft. The Battle of Blood River happened on the 16th of December 1838. With the 800 men completely surrounded by more or less 15,000 Zulus, they were able to push back the Zulus by strategic military planning.
So the most interesting thing, which is quite a miracle even today, imagine if you have 15,000 soldiers surrounding you, each soldier carrying 5 spears for throwing and 1 for stabbing. Which means if you start multiplying and you imagine you have like 60,000-70,000 spears around you, only 3 people are injured, not even fatally wounded.
After the bloody battle, Dingaan fled away to Swaziland, where he was killed by the Swazis. His brother Mpande became the new Zulu king. The Voortrekkers attended this inauguration, which in turn led to a time of peace. In the early 20th century, the 16th of December was expressed in a very negative way as Dingaan's Day, referring specifically to his defeat. Later in the 20th century, it was changed to the Day of the Vow.
The reason why it was changed now to Day of Reconciliation is simply because we do not want that kind of conflict in our history. Hopefully that is past. I think we have shown in 1994 that South Africans can sit together around the table and come together and solve problems in a more mature way.
Today, 2 museums stand on either side of the river where the battle commenced.